Most people love a good love story. No matter what culture you're a part of or what part of history you live in, people have always cared about love. It's hard to escape. It's in our books, our movies, our music, billboards and ads, and even video games. Despite love being such an important topic to us, we tend to be really selective in what parts of it we choose to dwell on, which over time can actually leave some harmful messages to society. For starters, most love stories just focus on the aspect of falling in love. There's desire and tension. We often experience stories that take us to the point where passion is at its height and two characters finally confess they love each other and want to be together, and that's it. That's all there is to it. I mean, that's the hardest part of any relationship, right? It's happily ever after from here on out, and we rarely get to see anything that happens after that. Forget if the characters still have serious flaws that need to be worked out. Love heals all. But in reality, anyone who's ever been part of a romantic relationship knows that that's a joke and the relationship is actually just beginning. Because what comes next is often less exciting and thrilling on the surface level, we don't often get to see the lifelong relationship that precedes. The mundane life tasks, learning to communicate, learning to become more selfless and to serve the other, learning to become best friends, learning to tackle life together as a team. The part that really is the hardest, yet is also the most rewarding. You know, finding that lifelong partner you want by your side through thick and thin. In video games in particular, this aspect is so rarely seen that it's practically non-existent. Plenty of games include romance. There's the classic get the girl trope from old school platformers, and some more modern games even give you options and let you choose your partner to woo. But again, it's all about the chase, the trying to win over, passion, infatuation, and then it ends. I didn't realize how starved I felt for a deeper look at a realistic lifelong relationship, particularly a marriage, in media until I played a game that made me pause completely. And this game came from one of the most unlikeliest series, Uncharted. And if you had told me prior to Uncharted 4's release that I would be making this video on it as a positive example of marriage and love and relationships, I definitely would have thought you were crazy. Now don't get me wrong, I love Uncharted and I love Nate and Elena, but anyone who played the original trilogy would not call their relationship very stable. In fact, every game started off with Elena completely out of the picture because something caused a rift between the two of them. To really help paint the picture for why I like Uncharted 4, I wanted to first dig a little bit deeper into the original Uncharted trilogy for the PS3. Now, Nate and Elena's relationship followed a very typical route for the action-adventure genre. Nathan Drake is your typical action hero. He's charming and charismatic, he's good-looking and athletic, and he can't seem to keep a stable relationship. While he doesn't have as many girls at his side as, say, James Bond or Indiana Jones, his drive for adventure does make it hard to maintain a relationship once an adventure comes to a close. This issue is highlighted by the fact that the woman he really loves is journalist Elena Fisher. While she is competent, smart, and has a knack for adventure herself, she is far more cautious, reserved, and caring. This often drives a wedge between them, as Nate is willing to be far more reckless and get into deeper trouble than Elena is. You might think the type of person who would be good for someone like Nate is Chloe. She's just as much into adventure, she thinks like him, she's willing to do the selfish thing, but that's where Uncharted 2 highlights the issue with someone like Chloe. She's actually not a good match for Nate. Chloe is self-preserving, while Nate will be selfless to protect those he cares about, which is actually more something Elena would do. You can't always trust if Chloe is loyal, while Elena is nothing but. The elements that sometimes drive a wedge between Nate and Elena are also the things that make them good for each other. They can bring out the best in each other, and by the end of Uncharted 3, Nate finally gets that, and Elena does too. One subtle thing the original Uncharted trilogy did different from many other action series was that it didn't paint Nathan Drake's inability to keep a consistent relationship as a positive. While many series praise men for having a fling and then tossing the woman aside for the next installment, Nathan's difficulty to keep Elena was always a weakness of his. It was rooted in fear, often hidden under his snarky nature, something he'd have to work through to overcome. The original trilogy ends with Nate's friend and father figure Sully encouraging him that Elena and his relationship is worth fighting for, and handing him Nate's wedding ring, which Nate thought he had gotten rid of. Nate shows Elena that he is committed to her and loves her, and they walk off holding hands and arm in arm and being all adorable. Everything seemed perfect. That was where the story was supposed to end. And for many years it did. And then Uncharted 4 was announced. With that, everyone knew Nate and Elena's story wasn't going to end where Uncharted 3 left it off. But this new game decided to go in a different direction. And instead of seemingly focusing on Nate and Elena, it instead was going to focus on Nate and his just-announced long-lost brother Sam. Details prior to release were rather silent on Elena. We knew she and Nate had settled down to live a normal life since the events of Uncharted 3, and we saw that one clip of her, turning around and looking worried and disappointed in all the trailers, but, that was it. It was almost as if to say Elena really wasn't important to Uncharted 4. She wasn't going to be completely forgotten, but there really wasn't anything new to add. Her arc was pretty much done. At least, that's the impression I got. And honestly, it's even the impression I got while playing the first half of the game. But boy was I wrong. Uncharted 4 was a lot more emotionally complex than I would have expected. When booting up the beginning of the game, it immediately starts off by showing the player that Nate will be back to his old shenanigans soon enough. But then the game calms down a bit before that point to show the normal life he's currently living. Our hero now salvages metal, his dives give him that little bit of, adventure, but it's obviously not the same. He also completes mountains of paperwork. But while it's obvious Nate doesn't feel as fulfilled, he is committed to working on a strictly legal basis. Even when others around him try to encourage him to blur that line a little bit, like his boss Jameson asking him to take a salvage job in Malaysia where they don't have the permits. At Nate's home, we get to see even a little bit more of his normal life. He lives in a modern and tidy house that looks fresh out of a magazine. There's super cute photos in an album of Nate and Elena's wedding, with Sully crying. It's adorable. Nate's old trinkets from his adventures are hidden up in the basement out of sight, but he seems to enjoy spending his time up there and reminiscing about the good old days. We also get to learn that Elena now writes articles on her computer. Gone are the days of filming and traveling the globe and tracking down war criminals. When both of them talk about their days, you can kind of sense the dissatisfaction in both of them towards their work. They're basically just doing what needs to be done. However, you can also tell that they're still very much in love. They still love to banter, they smile just looking at each other, the way they play video games to help see who will do what chores is it's sweet. But the seeds of their dissatisfaction are deeply planted in the player's mind, especially from Nate. When Elena is telling Nate about her paper, he just gazes off and dreams of adventure. But when Elena also encourages him to take that Malaysia job, he firmly turns her down, saying they agreed not to do that kind of work anymore. Elena's worried about her husband, but Nate wants to uphold his part of the promise because he loves and cares for his wife, and he knows his adventuring in the past had caused her pain. There are so many emotions present in this scene. It's joyful and sweet, and yet there's also this emptiness and deeper longing inside of both of them. You can tell that when Elena asks Nate,
"Hey, are you happy?"
Yeah, of course. You? Really?
Come here.
and with that fade, that's the last we see of Nate and Elena interact in person for a good chunk of the game. Nate's brother Sam gets introduced, and he drags Nathan back into adventure in order to save his life, and Nate knows this is the wrong thing to do, but, it's being done for an important and noble cause. So he makes the impulsive decision to call Elena and say that the Malaysia permits have arrived. Oh yeah, that's right. Instead of explaining the situation to his wife, he lies. Honestly, at this point, I thought I knew exactly where this was going to go for Nate. This story was no longer about him and Elena, and it was going to tread the path of so many other stories before it took. And what do I mean by that? Well, I guessed that the lie would drag on and go deeper and deeper. Okay, yep, that happened, check. And through that, we'd find out that Nate really hasn't matured as much as a character as we might have originally thought. Yep. Oh, and then Elena would eventually find out about being deceived, and there would be this huge confrontation where she refuses to listen to Nate's justification for his actions before she storms off. Yeah, okay, that totally happened. Super check. Okay, and just a quick side note. The frustrating thing about this last part is, when I played this game for the first time, since I just finished playing one of the most epic action set pieces ever, I actually wanted to justify Nate's actions, even though I was also angry at him for lying to his wife the whole time. Like, I wanted to view Elena as a bad guy for trying to stop her husband from saving his brother, but like, no, she has a point. He has straight up deceived her for weeks. He could have died and she wouldn't have known, and then he announces, hey, I have a secret family member you've never heard about. Like, how does she even know the man that she's married? Has she just been deceived in lies this whole time they've been together? Like, trust for her has been completely shattered. It was all fitting into the nice cliche plotline. I felt I had seen it before, and I ignorantly thought I had the rest of their story figured out. Now, all that was left was for Elena to disappear from the story for, again, another large portion of the game, until either A, Elena gets kidnapped and Nate has to save her, and of course she's totally forgiving of his actions once she's saved, or B, Nate comes back a hero, which again allows her to move on from any hurt feelings, and everything is excused and hunky-dory because, yay, he saved his brother! And the reason I found this so frustrating is because Elena is fully capable of being part of the action. She's not a bystander. She was involved in the adventure for the last 3 games. But since the game seemed to be about Sam, I thought she must have been forgotten. And again, I didn't give the creators credit. And I was so dead wrong, and I'm so glad I was. Things in the game reach another emotional peak quite a bit later on when it's discovered that Sam has been lying to Nathan this entire time. Nate left his job, potentially ruined his marriage, and hurt others to save his brother who didn't even need saving. Then an altercation with Rafe leaves Sam captured and leaves Nate at the bottom of a ditch, left for dead. The only person who was still there for him at the time, Sam, was not there to help, and the wounds of his betrayal were still fresh and deep. When all seems lost, the person he needs most finds him and comes to his aid, Elena. It's unexpected, but it's thrilling. Like, she's back, guys! And the point when Nate wakes up begins my favorite section in the game. And trust me, there's a lot of parts of this game that I really love. It begins with Elena tending for Nate as he finally comes clean to her about his brother and why he never told her about him. The first steps of healing begin, but it's obvious there's a lot of hurt between them. Elena's not sure how to take this information, but you can see her begin to connect the pieces and to understand where her husband was coming from, and you can tell Nate is very cautious and worried about her as he speaks. He knows he's messed up royally, and honestly doesn't deserve to have her there. He discovers that Elena and Sully have been looking for him all over the island, and were able to find him just in time when this powerful moment happens.
Thanks.
Sure.
No, I mean, thanks for saving me. Again.
I almost didn't this time.
Right.
Come on. I got us a ride.
The look in both Nate and Elena's eyes tells so much about their feelings and thoughts. This won't be an easy patch-up. There was a lot of trust that was broken, and there's a lot of work to do in their marriage. But Elena reassures him, and they continue their journey. It's a somber beginning, but they quickly find themselves back into usual trouble, solving puzzles and getting into gunfights with Nadine's men. One can see glimpses of their old selves in their adventuring, but you can never fully move past the emotional weight that lays on them. Things proceed to take the next step forward when Nate and Elena take the ancient lift up. They look out over the beautiful scenery, and Nate finally takes the opportunity to ask Elena why she came back after all. Her first answer is typical of the couple, making light of the situation and giving him a rough time, but then she pauses and says,
And you know, there's that whole marriage vow thing.
For better or worse.
Yeah. For better or worse.
To Elena, her vows hold meaning and weight. She didn't marry Nathan Drake lightly. She understood she was marrying someone with history and baggage. She knows a lot of the growth he has made and where he still falls short. But she sees the bigger picture and she loves him, even when his shortcomings wound her. But Elena also uses this time to express her frustrations with the situation and why she was so hurt and mad. She says that Nate hiding the information from her to protect her is not the right approach. As a married couple, they are a team, and they should work through these difficult things together. This is a really helpful truth to hear. Marriage isn't about one person going rogue and being self-reliant. It's about teamwork. It's about working through fear and trusting someone else to accomplish your goals together. Some journeying later, another breakthrough happens after Nate barely escapes with his life. Elena's previous words to him about not hiding information to protect her apparently was still running through his head.
Come on.
I wasn't trying to protect you. It's just, I made a promise that I was done with this life.
We both did.
Yeah, but I broke it. I didn't tell you because I was afraid.
Afraid of what?
Of losing you. I guess I was, protecting myself. You know?
We have a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah. Should keep moving.
He begins to see that what she said wasn't quite right. The issue is actually deeper than that, and more selfish. Yet here she is, selflessly standing by his side. Nate comes clean about the final piece of the puzzle that led them to this mess, which was probably a truth he didn't even recognize in himself before. There is so much self-realization about this statement. He doesn't shift the blame. It's not Sam's fault, it's not Sully's fault, it's not Elena's fault, it's his. He cares about his wife, but he was more afraid of what she would think about him, so he chose to escape potential consequences, wounding her in the process. He was afraid because he knew she had every right to leave him for his actions, every right to say enough was enough and he would never change. But despite the pain he caused, there his wife was, right in front of him. A bond, a covenant, that ties them deeper than their emotions, than their shortcomings, and it becomes clear that both of them are now on the same page about being open, honest, and wanting to make their relationship work. With most of the hurt out in the open, Nate and Elena's relationship can finally begin to mend. The emotional weight begins to subside as they get more opportunities to be themselves again. And when they do, they begin to remember what made them fall for each other in the first place, and rediscover what a great team they make. For Nate, that moment comes when the two of them are spying over Libertalia's wealthy area of New Devon. Not only does their banter play well off of each other, but Nate realizes he had forgotten just how good his wife is at this kind of life, deducting history and clues and adventuring. For Elena, it's when Nate discovers the founders of Libertalia dead at the feast table, and he pieces together what happened to them. She sees the passion in his voice and eyes. She sees how alive he feels as he begins to see the bigger picture. And she begins to realize that maybe the way they'd done things in their normal life wasn't the best for them. But then Nate looks up to her and apologizes, still knowing that he broke his promise to leave the adventuring life. The couple work through more puzzles and survive terrible exploding perils, and despite the danger and desire to protect the other, they both fully enjoy being back in the action. Towards the actual climax of the game, Nate and Elena get separated as Nate needs to go find and rescue his brother Sam one final time. You can see the worry and the love in her eyes. She understands that she can't be there for him during this part of his journey, but she yearns for him to come back safe. That was her biggest concern all along. She just wanted him to be safe. The next powerful moment for their marriage comes after the adventure is over. Everyone's safe, Sam gets to integrate back into normal life, and Nate and Elena also get to go back to their everyday lives as well. We get to see Nate back doing the paperwork when his boss comes in and announces that he's very close to selling his business and retiring. Nate discovers that the potential new owners of that business are him and Elena. When he talks to his wife about it, she shares that they may have oversteered in trying to live a normal life. Their strengths lie in working together as a team, and they both missed that adventure. She proposes that Nate can continue and explore and discover lost artifacts, while she can go back to filming and reporting his discoveries, and they will work on a strictly legal basis. This proposition seems to be a perfect balance for the couple. While Nate did break his promise and went back to the adventuring life, Elena realizes that they were forcing themselves to be people they weren't, which wasn't healthy either. Not only did this adventure help Nate work through his insecurities and relationships and himself, but Elena also learned to encourage both of their passions into healthy ways that would help both of them flourish. They learned how to be more open and honest with each other. They learned how to better communicate. They learned how to work through really difficult conflict. They learned how to tackle this together as a team. Both of them left that island with a renewed commitment to their marriage and understanding on how to work through adversity and come out stronger through it. And the player gets to see the fruit of that growth in the epilogue. Gone is the tidy house and the sterile environment. Laundry is left around and items are where they don't belong. Photos of their accomplishments hang all over the walls. And then there's Cassie, their daughter. It's obvious they love her as they love each other. They've raised her with their best effort. Nathan Drake, the outcast boy who sought adventure, found it in his family. Elena, Cassie, Sam, and Sully. It's the people in his life that have truly brought contentment. They're the ones worth fighting for. Now, why is all of this so significant? Again, this look at relationships and marriage is practically unseen in the medium of video games. And while Uncharted 4 in many ways isn't necessarily a game to take life lessons from, I mean, murdering hundreds of people is totally okay because their boss is a jerk, right? But in terms of relationships, love, and marriage, it made me pause, reflect, and in ways, I think it taught me something. This video has been incredibly difficult for me to write. I had the idea for it back when I started this channel about a year and a half ago, and I've slowly been working on it since then. But it has been harder than I thought to capture my emotions and thoughts on it. Even now, I wish I could better explain how I really feel. But you know, it was time to bite the bullet and finally wrap things up, even if I don't think the script was perfect. But it comes at a very appropriate time that I couldn't have planned better, as I just got married myself. My life is very different from that of Elena and Nate, but there's still things I can learn from them. I'm also excited because I'm having my husband play through the Uncharted series for the first time, and I can't wait for him to finally play Uncharted 4 so we can talk about it together. Video games are a really important medium for storytelling and connection, and I would love to see more aspects of life, family, and relationships be portrayed. I would love to walk away not just with feeling like I'm an awesome action hero, but feel like I learned something about life. Uncharted 4 is just one step in that direction, and I hope many more games come to continue that trend. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe, and if you would like to help support more of these videos, please consider partnering with me over on Patreon. This has been the Girl with the Controller, and I hope you have a lovely day.